Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back to Data Analysis and Interpretation. This is a very general introduction to the course. What we are going to discuss here is what are we trying to do? Of course, Professor Guru Rajan has very beautifully explained in the previous sessions as to what are the kind of questions we are trying to answer. But here, what I'm trying to explain to you is that how are we going to go about doing it? So in the process, I will explain a concept of population in statistics. Then we will talk about how we learn through sample. Then we will learn about quality of sample. And in general, we will say during this course, what will be our approach of learning this process. So what are we trying to do here? Well, statistically speaking, there is something called population. This population is an unknown entity. Okay. So what do we mean by population? Let us see. If you want to talk about the height of all the college going students in India or college going that age group male in India, then that's a population. Okay. You want to know their average height and their distribution, etc. Okay. So this is a very large population. It talks about all such male in this age group in India. Okay. That is an unknown entity. We do not know their individual heights. We do not know anything, but we want to learn about it. And that is a population. It's a reality, but it's an unknown entity as far as statistics is concerned. From this, we collect a small data. Okay. Now, suppose I collect the height of every male member in this classroom. Then I have a data with me. Okay. It's a data from the same population, but it's not the whole population data. It's a sample data. I have taken a small sample, and the sample is all the second year MTech MEMS student who have taken MM217 in the year 2020 first semester. And their heights I have actually in my hands. It's a hard facts on my hand. Okay. So that is called a sample. A small sample data is collected. You see, the population, we have no information except that we can describe what is the population. But now we have some hard facts on our hands. That is called data. And when we do the data analysis, what we really try to do is describe and infer about the population using the data. We want to talk about the population of all the male population of India going to the college in that age group. We want to talk about their height. And that is the population. And we will infer about this population using this data. And that is called data analysis. Well, it is something like this. You know the story about elephant and the three blind men, right? So elephant is like a population and three blind men are looking at three sides to know as to what this animal, what is it, what it is. So elephant, you can imagine, is like a population. We do not know what it is. And sample is like the observations that we make is the data. The sample observation is the data that we have on our hard facts that we have on our hands. So sampling becomes a very important aspect in statistics. it gives you data which is a real hard fact in your hands. It should therefore be collected so that it is representative of the population, and it should be random. We will talk more about what is this randomness as the course progresses. Then there is the sampling. How do we do the sampling? This in itself is a subject of study in statistics. We are not going to go into too much detail, but certain basic aspects of sampling will be taught by Professor Gururajan as the course progresses. Then when you have the data in your hands, there are, broadly speaking, two types of analysis that we tend to do. The first is called descriptive analysis or descriptive statistics. Okay, here we just try to describe the data numerically and graphically. No assumptions are made. In that sense, it is non-parametric. This word non-parametric also you will understand in the course of this time, going through this course. And another job descriptive analysis does is that it ensures that the data is clean and random. The next type of analysis is called inferential analysis or inferential statistics. What does it do? It uses the data to infer about the population. Remember, while we do the descriptive analysis, we only describe the data. We don't talk about population. But when we do the inferential statistics, we try to talk about the population. We try to infer about the population. It may use descriptive statistics to make certain hypotheses about the population, and then it would use its own methodology to analyze the data to test whether this hypothesis is in right direction or not. We then make inferences about population. We may even make certain futuristic prediction about the population. So these are the two broad types of data analysis that we are going to cover in the course. So as such, we will proceed in this way. Our approach would be, first we'll talk descriptive analysis. Okay. So Professor Gururajan will talk about descriptive analysis, and you will actually do certain amount of descriptive analysis using R software and certain data. Then we will study building blocks of statistics, that is the probability theory, random variable, and special random variables. Then we will move on to inferential statistics, which is the estimation and hypothesis testing part. These methods we will use for describing certain special methods of analysis, where we will cover regression analysis, analysis of variance, design of experiment, quality control, and non-parametric methods. So this is how our journey is going to be. The purpose of giving this introduction is largely to make you understand the concept of population, an unknown entity, which through data we are trying to infer about. So let us go through this journey and enjoy the path.
Hello and welcome to Data Analysis and Interpretation. This is the third lecture, and in this lecture we are going to talk about data collection methodologies. And the outline of this lecture is as follows. We will have a very short introduction to data. What are the types of data that one collects? And then we will look at the methods of collecting this data. And then I will talk about some issues which are specific to science, engineering, and technology. So let us start with the data. Data is a currency of statistics. Without data, you cannot do statistics. Okay? And the interpretation of data depends very crucially on how the data is collected, for example. Is it reproducible? Is it reliable? Is it representative? Is it big enough? So these kind of questions are to be answered before one can interpret these data. Or while interpreting these data, one should keep these things at the back of one's mind, because otherwise you can get to misleading conclusions. Okay. So how do we collect data, and how do we document data is an important part. But we are not going to spend too much of time on this aspect in this course. So in fact, this is the only lecture. This and what Professor Gokhale has told about data. And then we are going to assume that you somehow have data, and everything else about the data collection is taken care of. And then we are going to proceed with the data analysis and interpretation for the rest of the course. But this is an important point, and those of you who are more interested can go explore it in a much greater depth. But as far as this course is concerned, this is just one lecture, but the things that we expect you to keep in mind for the rest of this course. Okay, there are two broad types of data collection that is carried out. One is called exploratory. The other one is with very clearly defined goals. And in general, you will hear in most of these statistics courses and data analysis courses that you should have very clearly defined goals before you start collecting data. In one of the lectures, we talked about Stella Cunliffe's advice to statisticians that they should convince biochemists, for example, that they should design experiments before actually doing the experiments, right? So it's always advised that you should have clearly defined goals. But having said that, in most of the times, at least in science, you will see that exploratory data is also very important. In fact, these are the two stages. Initially, you have to do exploratory, and now you have some data, then you can go do more focused or things with clearly defined goals. For example, exploratory data collection has its own value. To tell you why it is so, let us consider that somebody who is looking at behavior of animals. Let us say that somebody is studying one of the big apes in Africa, and obviously you cannot go with any clearly defined goal. At first, you have to go and you have to explore, that you have to collect all sorts of data. For example, you might take videos of these apes and how they behave in different circumstances, for example. And lots of footage, if you collect, probably at some point you see that they have a tendency to use some tools, or they learn how to use tools and they teach it to one of the offsprings or to somebody else. So if you notice these things, then you can have a more clearly defined goal, namely, okay, tool use in this particular ape, and that is now becomes a study of its own, and you can go try to collect more data specific to this and try to answer questions. So it's never that you will always have clearly defined goals. Most of the times we also do exploratory data collection, but both exploratory and data with clearly defined goals have to be collected using certain methods, and that is what we are going to discuss next. How do we collect data? What are the methods of collecting data? Okay, one method of acquiring data is historical. So what do we mean by that? A good example of this is Kepler, how he came up with his law of planetary motion. He did not collect the data that was needed for coming up with this law. So he looked at historical data, other people who have collected data like Tycho Brahe, for example. So he looked at all the data that has been historically collected and used it for his analysis. And we are also going to do some of these things in this course. For example, what is the rainfall in the past 115 years? So that is historical data. Somebody else has collected, and we are going to take that data and we are going to do that analysis. Sports data, for example. Okay, so different matches played by different players and their performance statistics and things like that. So these are historical data that is available, and you can take them and you can try to analyze. And there is no experiment that is set up for this. For example, for rainfall or sports, you really cannot set up experiments. So it happens, and you just collect that information. And in most of the cases, we cannot even collect the information, because in 1900, what was the rainfall? Obviously, there is no way for us to collect. So it is already available, and we are going to take it. The other way after historical is observational. In the case of observational also, most of the times it's very difficult to set up experiments. So we are just observing and we are collecting data. It differs from historical in the sense that it is collected by us. Okay. Astronomy is an example. So you keep looking at the skies and stars and the radiations that are coming from these distant galaxies and so on. So this is observational, because we are collecting the data, but we really don't have too much of say in how the experiments are to be conducted. So whatever is happening, and we are just collecting information. Animal behavior, like I mentioned, is another example where observational studies are important, because there is not much that you can do. So especially if you want them to study in their natural habitat, if you want to give some stimuli and see how the animal responds, that you can do. There you will probably be able to even set up an experiment. But most of the times, if you are just interested in knowing how they behave on their own, then it is purely observational. There are no experiments that you are going to carry out. Or for example, you want to know how many accidents are happening at the IIT Bombay main gate signal, for example. So these are the things where we really don't set up experiments, but we observe and collect data, and that becomes part of your data analysis later. Okay, there is a third mean, and in this course, when we say data, this is what we mostly mean, where we design experiments. When I say experiments, I don't just mean laboratory experiments. These could be surveys. Like, for example, the post-poll survey that Lokniti CSDS conducted is a designed experiment. You decide which constituencies, which polling stations, and who are the people who will be asked for their opinion, and so on and so forth. So these surveys, election surveys or marketing surveys, they are also part of this designed experiment. And this is what we are going to discuss mostly in this course. One example is, for example, defects in a production facility. Here again, initially it is exploratory. You will know what are all the parameters that will affect the quality of a product, and then once they are known and once you notice something, you will be able to have very precise control on these parameters. So there is some exploratory data analysis based on which we know what are all the parameters that can change, and then we have precise control over each of those parameters, and then you can design an experiment where you will vary them in a controlled manner and try to get more data out of it, right? And this design is possible because of historical or observational data. So it's that is why it is important to talk about exploratory data analysis, data collection also, and from the such exploratory data, it is possible to have more designed experiments from which you can collect very specific data, which is very useful for us. Okay, so when you are designing experiments, of course, if you are looking at the defects that are formed in a production facility, there are not too many ethical questions that pop up. But these designed experiments in other fields can lead to ethical issues. Clinical trials is an example. Suppose you want to know what is the efficacy of a particular medicine for a particular disease. Typically, the experiments are done by taking a population, people who have this disease, who are more or less the same in all other parameters, and then randomly assigning medicine or no medicine, that is called placebo, to half of the population. Now, after some time, and these studies are typically double blind, which means the patients who are taking the medicine and the person who is administering the medicine will not know who got placebo and who got the medicine. And then when the analysis is done, if you find how many people have recovered from this disease or have benefited from the medicine, and if you find that most of the people who have recovered are the ones who have taken medicine, then you can say that compared to no medicine, that is a placebo, this is how effective this is. Sometimes even people who get placebo actually recover. Okay, so that is a completely different point. That is not what we are discussing. But given that there are, say, 100 patients, all of them are equally suffering from this disease, randomly deciding that you will not give medicine to 50 people on humanitarian grounds might be very bad. You might not know who those 50 people are, but they are still people who are suffering, who have the same disease. So is it correct or ethical to do this is a question. From a purely statistical point of view, of course, the data is not useful unless you have controls and you have baselines, etc. So from that point of view, it's very clear that you should have a trial in which you will also hand out placebos so you can compare. But from a humanitarian point of view, it might not be. Maybe, I mean, if the suffering is too much or if it is going to lead to death of these patients, sometimes, I mean, other considerations might be more important. Maybe you will not worry too much about the data. And in such scenarios, typically in clinical trials, what people do is that if you have more than one medicine, then you can test the efficacy of these two medicines. And that way, I mean, everybody who participates in your experiment actually have a fair chance of recovery. And between those, then you are going to compare efficacies. Now, if there is only one medicine and there is no other competing medicine, for example, is it ethical to do this kind of placebo trials, or everybody should get a medicine? So it's an ethical question and it is sometimes discussed. We are not going to do too much of ethical aspects in this course, and nor are we trained in philosophy or ethics. But I want to draw your attention to these issues because these are also becoming more and more important in these areas. In machine learning, for example, in artificial intelligence, for example, and in social experiments, when data analysis is done and these kind of experiments are set up or these kind of measures are taken, sometimes they can lead to ethical issues, and it's important to be aware of them. So, okay. So there is similar example from economics also. Suppose you want to know what is the measure that a government can take which will help some people, for example, and do we set up experiments? Do we take some poor people and do experiments on them by giving some people something and by not giving some other people anything, for example? So here also the same kind of technique is used. If you're doing an experiment, you should make sure that everybody benefits from the experiment, and it also answers your question from a statistical point of view, namely which of the interventions are better for the aim that you have in mind. Okay, so these are like I said, ethical questions. We will not discuss too much, but we will keep pointing out these issues to you as and when they arise. Okay, so there are things that you can do by observation, but there are things that you cannot do by observation. You have to take a survey. Here is an example why a survey is needed. For example, if I want to know what is the fraction of population at IIT Bombay campus which smokes. So if I want to know this, obviously observation is not going to work because it is illegal to smoke on campus. So people who are going to be in public places are not going to be smoking. So if you take a pen and pad and walk all around the campus and start noting down how many people are smoking, you will find that your data is heavily biased, because rarely some person might be smoking, but that person is actually breaking the law. So you will only get the fraction of the institute population which is breaking the law about smoking, but you will not actually get the number of people who are smoking on campus. So in those cases, what you do is to hand out a questionnaire and ask them, okay, are you a smoker? And if so, how many packets or how many cigarettes you smoke in a day, and what brand, and whatever other information, right? So you can conduct a survey and try to get this information. Okay, now where do we conduct this survey then becomes an important question. You might think that, okay, let's go to a traffic junction because it will have a representative sample. If I go conduct it only in the classrooms, I will get mostly students and some faculty members. But this doesn't tell me information about staff and the family members of the faculty, staff, and things like that. So you need to find a place where you will get the representative sample. Now, sometimes, okay, so a traffic junction might be a nice place where everybody passes through, so you can get data. But a traffic junction might also be bad for other reasons. For example, people might be in a hurry, and the traffic is not a good place to stop people and hand out surveys or ask them questions and things like that. So maybe you can think that, okay, you can go to a bank or post office. Maybe people are standing in queue. Maybe they are willing to answer questions. But does everybody go to the post office? Does everybody go to the bank? Do we go to all banks? Do we stand near ATM and ask questions? And then these kind of questions arise. And even traffic junction, for example, if you pick a wrong type of junction, suppose you pick a junction which is in the hostel area, so the only people who are going to cross the junction are students. So if that happens, for example, again, this exercise is not very useful because you don't get the representative information. So when you conduct surveys, you have to remember all these other aspects, namely aspects that are related to how people behave, and aspects that are related to an idea of representativeness of the sample. I mean, are all people who are part of this population that I'm trying to look at are going to be here in my survey? Are they going to be sampled is a question, so that we have to keep in mind. Okay, so these kind of implicit assumptions we make and behavioral patterns and other issues also make it very difficult in these surveys. So sometimes no single best solution is possible. Maybe you have to do bank, you have to do post office, you have to do the junctions, and maybe from hostel students are coming and going back, and that is the only junction where you will get student population to be surveyed. Maybe there is another junction which is next to a girls hostel, so you will see most of the people who are crossing that junction are girl students, so that your data could be biased, and so on and so forth. So you have to do this, and many studies sometimes involve compromises. I mean, you know that this is not the best representative sample you can get, but that is what you have got, so you have to deal with it. And similarly, in sociology and in agriculture, in many such areas, for example, it is very different from laboratory experiments. See, you can say that, okay, I have a sample of this material, and I'm going to take samples in this material from every part, right? I might have a cast sample, I want to know its mechanical behavior, or I have a welded sample, I want to know how strong is the weld. I can take samples from every place if I want. It might be costly, it might be time consuming, it might be difficult to do, but in principle, there is nothing that stops me from doing that. But in other studies, sometimes even in principle, it might not be able, we might not be able to do a complete study or survey. So these things are important to keep in mind, because when we interpret results, these are the things that one has to keep at the back of one's mind in doing a proper interpretation.